All right, hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving into some pretty heavy stuff today.
Yeah, definitely a tough one.
We're taking a look at these really bad floods that are happening in Kentucky,
Right.
and this is a bit based on reporting that came out just recently, February 15th and 16th, 2025.
hmm
And the situation is really serious. At least 11 people have died because of this flooding.
Yeah, it's awful, and so many people have had to be rescued. It's
It's really heartbreaking, and I think it's important to remember this isn't just some abstract event we're talking about. You know, this is affecting real communities, people you might even know. It's hitting close to home for a lot of folks.
absolutely. And what's really striking is the North Fork Kentucky River. It's reached a level that hasn't been seen since 1984. I mean, think about all the development that's happened along that river since then. All the new houses, businesses, more people living there. It's all in this flood zone now, and it's way bigger than anyone expected it to be for decades.
Yeah, that 1984 marker really jumps out at you, right? I mean, it's been over 40 years. So what happened back then? And why does this flood exceeding that level make it so much worse now?
Well, back in '84, that flood, it was considered a once-in-a-lifetime kind of event, something you didn't expect to see again. But the landscape, the way things are around the river, it's changed so much since then. We've got urban sprawl, deforestation, and those things, they make the water run off faster when it rains.
Oh, okay.
It increases the volume of water in the river. So when we see this flood exceeding that historical benchmark, exceeding the 1984 level, it tells us a couple of things. First, the amount of rain, it's probably unprecedented in recent history. It's more rain than they've seen in a long time. But then secondly, the impact is much worse because we've built ourselves into a more vulnerable position over time. We've kind of put ourselves in harm's way.
Right, we've changed the environment in a way that makes these events more dangerous. And speaking of response, Governor Beshear has declared a state of emergency. You've requested federal assistance. It's clear the situation needs a coordinated response, but sometimes federal aid can take a while to arrive. Is this a wake-up call for Kentucky? Like, do they need to be more prepared on a local level?
Absolutely. This situation, it really highlights how important it is to have strong local preparedness. We've been talking about the impact of climate change, and experts have been predicting more frequent extreme weather events, right?
Right.
Well, this flood could be a really harsh example of those predictions actually coming true. It's like what they've been warning us about is actually happening.
And that brings up a big point, climate change. While the report we're looking at doesn't explicitly link the floods to climate change, it's hard not to see a connection there, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a question worth thinking about. We know that a warmer atmosphere holds more moisture. That's just basic science.
Uh-huh.
And more moisture means heavier rainfall. So while we can't say for sure that this specific flood was caused by climate change, it fits the pattern of what scientists are predicting. It's like, okay, this is what we were worried about.
Yeah, it's like all the pieces fit together in a way that's hard to ignore. So, with all that said, what does this mean for people listening, for folks in Kentucky, and really for all of us watching these events unfold?
Well, I think this flood, it's a stark reminder that we need to be proactive. We need to start taking some serious steps to be prepared for these kinds of things. We need to rethink how we plan infrastructure. Are the levees and dams that are in place good enough? How can we build in a way that's more resilient to flooding, especially in areas that are prone to it? And I think a really important question is, how can communities be better prepared to respond? How can they react quickly and effectively when a disaster like this hits?
Absolutely. And, as we wrap up our deep dive here, I think it's crucial to remember that even in the middle of all this tragedy, there are stories of resilience happening right now, stories of communities coming together to support each other. The stories are unfolding in those communities you might know, the ones affected by this. And I think it might be a good idea for all of us to reach out to friends or family in those areas,
Yeah.
not just to offer support, but to really listen to their experiences. What are they going through? What are their concerns? What are they learning from this? I think those firsthand accounts can be really powerful and informative.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with a lot to think about. What are the long-term effects on infrastructure and disaster preparedness after a flood this severe? And how is climate change influencing how often these events happen and how intense they are? These are questions we all need to consider to grapple with as we move forward.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another look at the news that matters.
See you then.
Bye, everyone. DCOC.